That's a really cool, interesting thing to have an actor on stage.
Yes.
For a whole act.
Mm-hmm.
Doing nothing.
Yeah.
Not paying attention.
Not paying attention. Intentionally. Yeah. Intentionally not paying attention.
Uh-huh.
Everyone, and welcome back to No Script, an unscripted conversation about theater's best scripts. I'm Jackson Nikolai, and this is normally the part of the show where Jacob comes on and says, I'm Jacob Mann Christensen. But today, we have reached one of those special episodes of the season. We've already had our themed month for the season, and now we are jumping into a special guest episode today. So you don't have Jacob today. Instead, you have me, and you have a good friend of mine named Phil Quinn, who is joining us on the show today. Hi, Phil.
Hello.
Hello. Thanks so much for being willing to come on the show today. As a way of sort of just getting to know you a little bit, I know you. We've been friends for 8 years-ish now, getting close to that, ever since I moved out to this neck of the woods here. But one of the early things we connected on was our love of theater and things like that. So, want to just like give yourself a short introduction to the folks out here in No Script Land?
Sure. Yeah. Hi, I'm Phil. Excited to talk to y'all today about theater. Theater was one of my first big loves. It became my identity in high school and early college. I was a theater major, musical theater major. It's where I met my partner. We did Jungle Book together, and she's a monkey and I'm a bear, and the rest is history. But yeah, I also went on to, I've done a lot of theater programs and volunteer organizations and that sort of thing. My partner still directs a lot of theater and is pretty involved in the community. I am here and there, but my time's pretty tied up. I'm a full-time therapist and I work part-time as a pastor here in the community. And so my love is theater, but much more on the spectator side the last few years.
Sure, yeah.
We'll see where that lands as my kids leave the house and maybe I step away from the pastoral stuff more into a regular work life. But for now, it is as a lover from afar and fond memory.
Yes, yes. As rehearsal lengths and times and shows, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, trying to weave all that together. And speaking of weaving it together, all of those kind of different pieces and aspects or like things that you're working on in the world kind of converge in the play that we're talking about today.
Yeah.
It's delightful.
I might have been thinking about that a little bit.
Yeah. So today we're talking about Children of Eden by Stephen Schwartz. First time we're talking about Stephen Schwartz on the podcast, which is wild. I was actually
criminal. No?
A little criminal.
No. All right.
So many seasons, and yet this is the first time we're talking about Stephen Schwartz. So I realized that today. So I'm going to give you a brief context eventually about Stephen Schwartz. But yeah, excited for that conversation. But excited about the way it kind of weaves those three different pursuits together.
Right. Yeah. No, it's one of the reasons I thought this would be a fun one to talk about. One, I got to do this way back, like when I was in high school, at a community theater production up in Sheboygan, Michigan, at this old historic opera house there. It was really fun and lovely. And so it's always kind of been one of those shows that's in my head through. It's one of the ones I'd put on during car trips because well, at that point it was the high tenor part, which is a little tough to get now. But yeah, and but also it's one of those that keeps coming up because there's such a theme of relationships and family and generational stuff that I thought would be fun for us to talk about.
Yeah. The way that this play deals both on a thematic level of kind of generationality, but also like we love talking about prop work on the show. There's really specific prop work and really kind of grandiose set stuff that's called for that like harkens back constantly to each other. So the way that this play like treats generationality, generational trauma and things like that, but also just like evocative, repetitive imagery is really cool too.
Well, I don't know how much you tune into. I mean, is it outing you to talk about your theological training, or do you talk about that?
I briefly. Right. Yeah.
We're theologically trained at the same place, and so it's interesting to take a script that's based on a few chapters of the Bible, like 9-ish, the first chapters of the Bible, but with a ton of fun liberty taken and new ways to interpret, and especially when you look at who God is and God's relationship with these people. It's been interesting because I know a lot of churches have sponsored this or put it on, And every time, like, I think about that, I think about how most of the churches, most, not all, I've been connected with would kind of throw a fit when they watch this. Because
Sure.
like, oh man, this is blasphemous and incorrect. And yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but it has some truth to it, which is lovely.
Yeah, I imagine it stretches them in very good ways. Yeah, for sure. Well, excited to get into the conversation around it. Before we do, as is always our practice, we love to say thank you to all of our patrons out there at patreon.com/noscriptpodcast. Thank you all so much for being patrons of the show. You make things like special guest episodes and themed months possible. So thank you all so much for making the choice to head on over to patreon.com/noscriptpodcast and become patrons over there. If you're looking for a way to like help out the show, if you're either like a first time listener tuning in today for the first time or a long time listener and just looking for a new way to engage the No Script community, Patreon is a great way to do that. We have a number of different tiers over there. The lowest one being just $1, $12 over the course of the year. As Jacob is fond of saying, he knows many people who would just give him $12 if he asked for it. So if you are looking for a way to help out the show, if you're looking for a way to give back to the show, if you're enjoying what you're hearing, Patreon's a great way to do that. You can find us over there. There's a number of different tiers, but also there's patron only posts accessed at the lowest tier. So we really want to try to build a community over there. So thank you again to all of the patrons who have already made the choice to become patrons of the show. And we will see you over at patreon.com/noscriptpodcast. And now, back to the script. I get to do it because I am all alone and Jacob can't steal it from me. All right, so jumping into some context around this particular script, and Phil's going to jump in at various points and kind of add in to what's going on. But wanted to give you just a little bit of context on the script as we jump into it, and then I'll also synopsize it as well so that we are on the same page there. Stephen Schwartz, though, to start with, just an incredible American musical theater composer and lyricist, very prolific. If you think you have not heard Stephen Schwartz, you have. Just the list of his works is profound, very, very, very full. So we've got certainly Godspell, we've got Mass, we've got Pippin, we've got The Baker's Wife, we've got Personals, we've got Children of Eden, which we're talking about today, we've got Hunchback of Notre Dame, we've got Wicked.
That's the Disney one.
That's the Disney
movie.
One. Yeah.
which is arguably like the best music in a Disney movie. We can argue about that, but not on this episode. Not
on this particular episode, but it's a true statement. We also got Prince of Egypt in there, just so many different stage musicals that you certainly have heard of Stephen Schwartz. But also there's films that you certainly know. I've already said one of them, Hunchback of Notre Dame, Prince of Egypt. There's the film version of Wicked coming out sometime this year. Enchanted, Disenchanted. My goodness. The guy has written just so much stuff and kind of continues to write prolifically and be a part of theater renown, but also film and also all forms of scripts. He's won a number of awards. He has received 6 Tony Award nominations for Wicked, Pippin, Godspell, and was given a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame in 2008. He was also one of in 2009 he was elected as the president of the Dramatists Guild of America, and he held that position all the way to 2014. So a very influential person in terms of theater, and just the little bit that I've given you today is just like a snapshot really of all that he has done and the work that he has both produced, but also the ongoing work that he does for the theater community as well. To kind of give you a brief snapshot of context for this particular play, though, for Children of Eden, the kind of origin of this play was originally written in 1986, and actually Phil told me right before we started recording that it was originally a different name.
Yeah, it was either Family Tree or Family Trees. I'd have to look at what But yeah, it was originally a handful of the songs, I think like 11 of them that were strung together as more of like a concert. What's the word for a church? What you do at Christmas time?
Like a youth play or something.
Like a pageant.
That? Yeah.
Yeah, it was that sort of thing, and developed from there into what he has said is his favorite stage project that he's done.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Given all the plays that I've just read off. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fascinating for sure. So then the original cast production of the fully formed Children of Eden was developed as a Royal Shakespeare Company workshop, and then there's an American premiere throughout the 1990s. There were numerous productions, both amateur and professional levels. So there's kind of like a heyday in those days of the 90s. There's also though then kind of some productions that got hit by so. I'm jumping over a large section of like 2013. It was presented in Melbourne, Australia. There was a one-night concert at the JF Kennedy Center of the Performing Arts in Washington, D.C. in 2014. On and on the list goes. This play has kind of continued to be produced. But then it's sort of scheduled for a Chicago production in 2020 and a possible filming of that production. And as we all know, we have the COVID-19 pandemic. This play is another play to be affected by the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020. However, there was a concert version in 2024 performed at the Lincoln Center this year. And then there's also kind of rumors around the production being streamed sometime in 2024 around the possibility of either Broadway or Chicago production. So this play is certainly current, and will give you the chance to kind of go out and see it, which is good because the recordings are a little bit hard to come by.
Super hard to find.
Yeah. There is an original London cast recording which was released on LP and CD, but that went out of print. So it's
did it?
Yeah, so it's hard to find, unlike Spotify and things like that.
Yeah, I've had it since probably somewhere I've got the CDs, but it's since 2000-ish I would have bought it. And they had 2 CDs available at the time. One was like selections of on a 1-disc, and it was a 2-disc set for the full soundtrack.
Yeah. So yeah, and there's a plethora of songs on it, so it makes sense to those like double deck CDs for sure. Mm-hmm. But there isn't really an easy way to find the music for this. So hopefully these newer productions that are coming out, there's going to be kind of a resurgence of it, and certainly I hope that there's a chance for you all out there in podcast land to go see it soon. And now we're gonna jump into the conversation. This is the fun of the guest episode is I just keep like changing my hats in like a 360 direction as I do. Normally we trade these back and forth, but this is just a big block of me talking. But we're gonna jump into some synopsis here for a second. Mm-hmm. This play, as Phil has already said, kind of focuses on the early section of the Genesis account. If you are familiar with any sort of biblical narratives or anything like that, this is the story from Adam and Eve through the flood and Noah. So, but it definitely like adds some different playful elements in there. Excited to jump into the conversation around it, but I'm just going to cruise by at like a cruising altitude for our synopsis here, so we can get into the conversation and the good stuff. The play starts with the character Father, who sort of occupies the role of God in this play. And Father creates the world with the help of kind of an ensemble cast of storytellers who are all kind of singing along and bringing into existence the things that Father is imagining. But eventually Father culminates with bringing to life Adam and Eve, these humans, these people to share. Children, yes, these people to share some of his life with. And certainly the longing of Father is to not be as lonely anymore, to have someone to be with, to experience life with, but also to give things to pass on a legacy to. So Adam and Eve are brought into the world very quickly, very early in the play, though they see up on the hill above the waterfall. A prominent waterfall features throughout this play, one of the many kind of recurring themes, a tree of knowledge, and they ask after said tree. And this next beat sort of rolls somewhat predictably, right? Like we kind of know this story. Eve goes up to the tree eventually, meets the serpent. Serpent gives the fruit. Eve brings back the fruit, and this is where we start to diverge just a little bit from maybe something that you've seen before. Eve kind of makes it into a juice and offers it to Adam, but at the last possible second she stops Adam from taking it, and then Father storms in, very disappointed in Eve, and sets about the work of banishing Eve from the garden, but Adam stops Father and says, wait, don't make me choose here. I love Eve. I love you. Don't make me choose. This theme will recur throughout this play. Father, though, does make him choose ultimately, and so he makes the choice to drink the juice and join Eve in banishing out of Eden. Notably, a staff is made from the tree of knowledge that follows Adam out of Eden, and will play a prominent role as we kind of continue onward into the story. Jumping forward, again, there's lots to dig into, and we'll go back into that eventually. Jumping forward to the next kind of chunk of time, we have the story of Adam and Eve's sons, Cain and Abel. Now, they have been banished from the garden. They're out in the world. They've kind of managed to create this little pocket of existence for themselves, but there is
the wilderness, the wasteland.
Yes, in the wasteland is a kind of a often recurring good tune, and its reprises are so poignant when they come around. But they've kind of crafted this little place of life in the wasteland together. But they have boundaries that Adam has set up. Adam will not let them go beyond certain parameters. Cain and Abel especially Cain is trying to press the boundaries of those. And so as they grow up, Cain starts to want to go further afield. Notably, on a day when Cain you had a thought?
There's another key word of the repetitions is the word beyond, right? Because Eve is thinking about beyond when she goes to the tree. Cain is what lies beyond. It's always this call to adventure that they blame God for, which is great. Like this comes from you. This is your spark of creation.
This is what you gave us. Yeah.
Yeah. So Cain is like Eve, and we see this. Yeah. Anyway, you got this. Carry on.
A lot of resonance between Eve and Cain. They definitely is the two of them kind of like the through line of God's frustration, but also the desire for to push the boundaries, to go beyond, to know the knowledge, flows from Eve to Cain. And Cain, on the day that he's like Adam finally leaves them alone long enough, he's like, we're gonna go. He talks to Abel, and he's like, we're gonna get out of here. We can cross the boundaries. I've got sandwiches packed or something like that. He pulls out a pack of stuff ready to go, and then Father shows up for the first time in ever, really, the first time that Cain or Abel have seen Father, and he praises Abel for having brought a sacrifice that day, and Cain just hadn't packed a sacrifice, wasn't about doing that, and so Abel gets the praise, Cain gets the critique, and then finally Cain realizes that Father showed up at this particular moment to maybe stop him from leaving, and so there's this kind of argument between them. Father tells Abel not to tell anyone that he was there, especially Adam, because he and Adam are still not on good terms, but eventually Father disappears. Cain runs off and runs off into the unknown. Adam and Eve return, and they kind of talking to Abel, and then Cain rushes back, having experienced the world beyond, seeing a circle of stones. And what must this mean, that there's a circle of stones? That there's people out there. There's more people to find. The excitement is so high in him, but it crashes up against Adam's boundaries that he has set. And so a fight begins between the two of them, which culminates in a retelling of the killing of Abel, which is much more led to as a result of sort of an accident where Cain gets so mad at Adam that he starts to attack him, moves to attack him with a rock. Abel jumps in the way, grabs his back, and Cain, kind of in a moment of madness, essentially kills Abel with the rock.
Right after, because this was that same theme of choice from Adam and Eve with the don't make me choose. Same theme replays, the don't make me choose. It's too much. It's tearing me apart. Abel is presented with the choice. Cain's like, come with me, let's go. And Adam's like, no, you know, if you leave, you can never come back, kind of thing. And it's in that choice that the fight happens,
which is important. Will be important later on, especially. But into this awful moment, Father returns, curses Cain. I'm going to continue to there's cruising altitude through this. Curses Cain. Cain is banished. Cain gets to go off and look wherever Cain wants.
And one key change from the Bible here, right? We had the mark of Cain is a significant thing. In the Bible, Cain's like, no, this is too harsh of a punishment. I need a mark to protect me. And God does that as like a nice thing to do.
Sure, yeah.
In this story, no, it's everyone's going to see this mark and know that you suck.
Right.
And everyone in every generation in perpetuity will hold this mark. because they suck too.
Right.
Which is not Bible, but it's and problematic potentially because of whatever. Well, that's later. But no, that's key. All right.
Yeah.
Carry on.
Certainly, this is a continuation of Father's anger at having been abandoned over and over, and he kind of sees the line, and at least in his mind, people like abandoning him, abandoning his rules, and so he curses Cain, because Abel was the one that he was like excited about legacy being passed down with, etc. And so now Abel is dead. But Seth is born, and so rather quickly after this storyline, the Seth is kind of replaced as like this. Oh, there's another son, and maybe this will work, and so I guess I'll hold off on more anger for now. And so the family kind of moves forward in time. Adam dies. Eve is left as kind of this last person of the family, but she like calls out to Father, and for the first time since that moment, Father returns and kind of says, "You did really well." Never really says he's sorry, but
it's just the Act 1 finale. It's fine.
It's just the Act 1 finale. Eve says that Seth actually kind of ran off too and found a whole bunch of other people and brought them all back, and there's grandchildren. They're farming the whole valley. Humanity continues. Act break. We're back again, and we're going to continue to move just at a blistering pace. We move forward 1,000 years. Here's Noah. Noah's building an ark.
You can't skip the generation song.
The generation songs moves us forward 1,000 years.
There you go. It's a great Act 1 opener. Come on.
Great Act 1 opener. And we kind of progress quickly through the generations to this portrait of Noah and Noah's wife. And we have Shem, Ham, Japheth, their wives, Ephra and Asha. And then there is...
To get Afra and Asia, though?
Okay. Yeah, it's yep. And then we have Yonah as well. Yonah is the servant girl who notably is of the line of Cain.
She has the mark.
She has the mark of Cain. And Shem and Ham are both married already. However, the kind of drama of this act starts with God showing up saying, "Boy, it's taken you a while to build this ark." I'm sorry, Father showing up. "Boy, it's taking you a while to build this ark." Noah says, "Yes, it took a while." And also we're waiting for Japheth to find his wife. God says, pick it quickly, pick a wife quickly, and make sure that she's of the line of Seth, because God is really, Father is really focused on wiping out the mark of Cain and the line of Cain, the line of Eve from the world.
They're the problem.
They're the problem. Father's like done with it. He's gonna wipe them out with a flood. And Noah already is kind of notably Noah is played by the same actor who played Noah. Adam.
Typically, yeah. Adam plays Noah. And Cain plays Japheth. Yeah.
Yep. So the process begins. We find out that Japheth has chosen a wife. The song starts of they're very excited for this wife to emerge, and it turns out that Japheth has chosen Yonah. Adam says, "No, you can't do that." Japheth says, "Yes."
Noah says Adam's dead.
Sorry, Noah says.
All right.
Noah says, "Japheth, you can't do that." Japheth says, "Well, screw you, I guess I will anyway," and hides her in the bulwark of the boat. As Father
Notably, she was ready to go die.
She was.
She sings a whole song about you go and live a happy life. I'm going to go die.
It's Japheth who insists on her going into the boat. Father shows up, floods the world.
Like you do.
Somewhat angrily, certainly. And also, I think my sense is that Father knows that Yonah is on the boat.
Oh, yeah.
And angrily floods the world and promptly is unreachable by
cuts off
anyone.
communication.
Yeah, no one can reach Father. There's lots of worry on the boat. They're running out of food. The question is, do they start eating the animals or not? Again, Yonah tries to tell Japheth, "You should tell them I'm here. Clearly God is mad at me. You should throw me overboard," etc. Japheth's like, "No, not going to do it."
And that's Jonah.
Yonah
is Jonah's name.
Good resonances there.
But they do. Anyway.
Yep. And another great sort of revamp on the story. She's the one who sends the dove out into the world.
Because Yonah means dove?
Mm-hmm.
All right,
yep.
Carry on.
She's eventually, though, found out by the elder brothers who find her in the bottom of the boat, and Japheth says, They arrive. Noah arrives and says, okay, so this is a problem. We found the problem. Let's deal with the problem. And Japheth jumps into the middle of them. A fight ensues, a very resonant fight with what happened with Cain and Abel 1 act to go. Exact same lines are said. Japheth grabs the staff of Adam that has made its way onto the boat through Noah and is about to strike down. I think it's either Shem or Ham, one of the two of them. But notably, Yonah jumps into the way. She stops Japheth from killing his brother, and he says, "No, I will not kill. That's for you and your God to decide if anyone's going to die." Then a really touching song sort of happens.
But it starts with, and it's the first time it's sung differently, but it's the same line. It's the "Please don't make me choose."
Yeah.
But now it's this really lovely song about how the hardest part of love is allowing the ones we love, our children, to become adults and make their own choices.
Yeah. Huh. Yep. We've got Noah kind of standing up to father a little bit, trying to change father's mind, and father's mind eventually is changed. Noah decides to not throw Yonah off the boat, and instead allow them to marry, which he does there. And then just again we're trying to wrap up quick. We've got land is sighted. They make it to land. They split up all over the different
Mama Noah
parts of the
Eve
world.
gets a big gospel number.
Big gospel number.
Yeah, all right.
Yep, we're coming. We found land. It's great. And Noah says, "Okay, we're all going to split up. Where are you going?" Everyone goes to their various different places. But Japheth and Yonah say, "We're going to go try to find Eden." So Noah gives them the staff of Adam and says, "Whenever you find Eden, plant it." And then a big number happens where we kind of like land into the now, where the advice of the children of Eden lands home to us, and we are encouraged to go out and find Eden, make Eden in the world, etc. There you go. That's the synopsis. It's a big play. There's a lot going on in it. We cover a lot of ground, a lot of story, 3 different families across the generations. Yeah, and there's a lot going on. A lot of resonances, though. Like to accomplish those resonances, you need that sort of like, ooh, this family, to really get it done.
Yeah. Yeah, and then I guess the other thing I'd want to say at the very ending, right, that the advice of the children of Eden to us, the children of Eden, it kind of goes back and forth as they're in this finale number using those words. There's so much in there about what it means, about the will in each of us is free. And this idea that maybe God doesn't speak to us in the same way. And if God did, what God would say is, it's your call. And that we can choose violence, and we can choose rejection, and we can choose exclusion. Or there's lines like, our hands can choose to drop the knife. Yeah. Our hearts can choose to stop the hating. And it's just this, like, I get goosebumps like every time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This play really deals in love as like a main point to a lot of these interactions. But it does so really interestingly by juxtaposing it with all of these moments of anger, moments of hate, moments of breaking boundaries, breaking rules, breaking hearts, killing people. Yeah. But underneath it all is this like this battle of, will we be able to live in love with each other?
Will we be able? No, that's not it. No, but and control. To me, the theme is really, the relationship between love and control, and love and holding on to what we love versus, consent.
Yeah.
There's another great, like right at the beginning when Adam is in that torn choice, Father has a line, "Make this one choice, my son, and you will never have to make a choice again."
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which we're thinking about this beautiful garden where there's no choices to be made, and you can just enjoy life and everything is good.
Mm-hmm. It's mirrored so well then with Noah, who really wants to give as much choice as possible to Japheth. And kind of over and over, even to father. Father's like, "You're the father, you decide, like you do it." And Noah's like, "Yeah, but wouldn't it be better if I decide what he's already decided?" That's the best of both worlds. And then like the big, like one of the big songs later on as Noah is trying to weigh whether or not to throw Yonah overboard, is this song that starts with, I wanted to let him fail as much as he
Yeah.
wanted to fail,
Yeah.
because he wants to fail. He wants to find a way to push.
But about how hard it is.
Yeah.
Right? You know,
Mhm.
I could warn him. I could help him not to stumble. I could warn him what to fear. But then the metaphor in the song of, you know, once an acorn starts growing into an oak, we can't put it back in.
Yeah.
And he sings that great part about taking care of a bird,
Yeah.
you know, and and then it flew away.
Yeah. To hold it.
Jerk! What a jerk! It flew away. I wish I would have just let it die. You know,
Yeah.
there's a line like that there, and then but no, that's not how love works. And so that's one of the things I think that a churchy crowd, that judgy, okay, but someone who is more of a conservative or a more, we want to control. We want to control how scripture or these stories are told or looked at. God is flawed in this story, and God is the one, maybe primarily, who learns in this story and changes.
Yeah.
And like the big moment, like the big climax of the play, is when God lets the dove return.
Yeah.
You know, and now, because the dove's been sent out, and so the dove comes back, and God doesn't say anything to them. Well, to the audience he does, but I don't think they're hearing it about how from now on I'm going to let you. It's your choice how you do the world from now on. And I'm goosebumpy again.
Yeah,
But it's like it's this. Wow, it's such a brave choice. It's living into what God dreamed of at the start, but releasing it too, which is terrifying, painful, and beautiful.
Yeah, I super agree that the character that goes on the biggest journey in this play is Father. Certainly other characters do as well, but partially due to the fact that Father is the only character that is in all three of the
Has the
stories.
through line? Yeah, sure.
But also though the kind of visceral emotional journey that he goes on is this, like, I made a thing, the thing won't stay. I'm gonna make the thing stay. The thing won't stay. The thing abandoned me. I guess I'll like the thing's kids. But that whole, like, the way that Father ends up, like, needing so much from Adam, from Eve, from and all the generations afterwards is the hero's journey.
Yeah.
Sort of. If almost all stories are a stranger comes to town or the hero's journey, the Father goes on the hero's journey in this play.
Wow, that's interesting. Yeah, I hadn't thought of it like that.
Yeah.
I'm very taken with the even at the start. We start with, if you're seeing this play and you kind of know the story, okay, so God's creating, and there's a lot of silly jokes, you know, like he lets there be light, and then the lights come up, and he's like, oh, it's really bright, you know, and it's cute. and then creation happens, and usually, like, this is a bunch of people in unicorn masks, kind of like a big ballet and whatever. It's great. And then we get to the kids are asleep, and they're not played by kids, right? But it's their first day, so yeah, they're children, and it's fun to see how people deal with the nakedness in the first part. It's typically just a skin-colored jumpsuit.
Sure.
But that's still kind of weird to see. But anyway, so there they are, and they're asleep, and they realize that they're in love too, which is great, and they whatever. After all, they were made for each other. It's really sweet. But when God sees them sleeping, there's this little kind of interlude where God sings about how this is what it means to be a father. And he sings some really beautiful stuff about fatherhood and about passing on what you know about the world and teaching. And then in the same beautiful, delightful song, it gets into, like, you know, and I'll plan their futures as I watch them sleep, and in return they'll love me, stay forever at my side.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't know, me listening back then, I'm like, yeah, that's what God wanted, and then the fall happened, and that's too bad. And me listening to it now goes like, ooh,
right,
like
red flags,
like. We're not going to live our lives through our kids, right? Our kids are going to live their own life. This is a big thing that happens in therapy, and a lot of people coming to me and them, like, how you disappoint your parents and how you let them down. And like, my job to be a good child is to live out the dreams of my father. And therapist Phil, God wouldn't, at least early Act 1 father, Act 1 through Act 2.5, I don't know,
right,
wouldn't like Phil because no, I mean, I'm going to side with almost every other choice taker in this story.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting that the like fine line, that song in particular, but then like throughout, really, whenever Father shows up, there's always this like fine line of like, oh, are you here to help? And oh, are you here to control? And
Or are you ready? Yeah, God, Father, are you ready to step back under my authority and into my boundaries again?
yeah, mm-hmm, yeah,
And if not, there's no relationship.
yeah,
And that is what a lot of therapy stuff is about, right? Is the the recognition and the painful recognition on the part of children, I mean maybe adult children, but recognizing that the relationship that they have with father or with mother, whatever, is totally contingent upon being who and how the parent has decided they should be. And that there isn't really, at least at this point, a longing from the parent for a relationship with you as you are. And that sucks. And I mean, even as we get into what's happening in the Noah story, this is what's happening between Japheth and Yonah, right? There's a real relationship based on, it talks about she was the servant and they grew up together, they loved each other, and it's great. They've got these great songs. That actor gets the best songs in the show, I think.
some good songs.
He gets the Lost in the Wilderness song that Cain gets, and then the In Whatever Time We Have in the second act kind of love song between Japheth and Yonah is really about how we support one another and be each other's shield through life and have a relationship that's more interdependent as opposed to this like wildly codependent, you must be what I tell you to be relationship. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting to see the kind of after effect of that, like controlling what the relationship is, passed down to Adam then, and Adam trying to negotiate whether to kind of carry on the generationality of that. Because Adam isn't just like fully like, locked down the boundary to Cain. There is some struggle, but ultimately he does come down on basically a very father-like role of like, I'm going to stop you. And so that has a sort of like, the consequences of kind of coming out of a system of contingent relationships based on if you're willing to do this, I will continue to be father to you.
Yeah.
Adam like replicates that over again in a generational fashion down to Cain.
And in that we get to see a bit of kind of the why, right? Because I mean, he explains all of that is we may be forgiven. We might get to go back. Like it's still in the fear of like, there's regret. I don't remember. You've read it more recently, but I don't think there's ever a line where he explicitly says like, I wish I wouldn't have made this choice. I chose you, Eve. But there's definitely that vibe.
Yeah, for sure.
There's resentmentiness there. There's arguments that happen. And she's trying to say, but look, we worked to grow this food that is so minimal. Doesn't it taste better? And I feel like Adam's going,
yeah.
No.
Yeah.
This is pretty hard. I don't like this very much. But yeah, there's this. So in the intergenerational piece that we get, we don't really get that with Father because that was the beginning. But with Adam's fear of father, Adam's not wanting to go outside again, the boundaries of what his father told. There's a very like conservative bent here of like, we need things to stay safe. We can't risk branching out farther because maybe we will be forgiven. We're going to keep doing these sacrifices. We're going to keep doing this the way that we were taught to do because then maybe things will go back to the way they were.
Yeah.
And that's the hope. And his fear is that his kids are going to make the same mistakes that they did. And they do.
Right. And they do. Yeah.
And they do.
There is like that it feels like Adam is throwing up all these sort of subterfuge ways or like rules that Adam has about don't go out of boundaries, etc. But finally there's a moment where Abel is like, just let Cain go, or I believe this is what I'm remembering this correctly. Just let Cain go out. It's either Abel or Eve. Just let Cain go out. He'll be out there. He'll be fine. He'll come back. And Adam finally says, but what if that's the day Father comes back?
Yeah.
And so you finally get to the core of what Adam is waiting for, hoping for. And then you get a compounding again, kind of triad of guilt happening to Abel in that scene of
Yeah.
of Abel is now like trying to be the adult for Adam. But Abel is also holding the secret that father showed up today and can't
I got to
tell
play that
Adam.
part. I was able when I did it.
Hey,
Yeah.
nice.
And then there's this great, like, that's a beautiful song too. There's this China childhood preschooly song. They're counting the foxes and whatever. But the song's called Close to Home, and one of the prettiest harmonies in the show with that trio. And you get like a memory where child Cain and child Abel come out and are singing this, and Adam's remembering them as children, and now they're adults. And it's this whole like, oh, why couldn't they have just stayed in this nice, malleable, controllable, thing? But no, they grew up in their pains and So no, it's so good. And I think the love relationship between Cain and Abel in this, that they are brothers, and all Cain wants is for Abel to come with him on this adventure, and Cain and Abel's not ready, and that's why Abel dies. And the same thing with like Adam. Maybe Adam would have done the fruit too eventually. Adam was at that point still happy alphabetizing the bugs. That's what he was doing at the time. But he wasn't ready, and he made that choice. And it's so that passing on of not just the control pattern, but of we get to see kind of the why and the fear inside of it about, what if this is the thing that makes it so things can never be good again? Yeah. And the same with Noah. Yeah. Right? Like this is, and quite literally at that point, like the world has ended and we're here. We're the last 8 people. And the choice I make right now decides if there will ever be more. Yeah. And Father is the one who's going to decide that based on my actions.
And based on whether I can convince Father to not re-flood again.
Right.
Yeah.
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 And that fear, that fear is so palpable. And it's the choice to like give up fear of one another, fear of the race of Cain, fear of violence, fear of failure. Because it's like we cannot know what will occur. It comes up next in the finale, and it's this just this beautiful turning over to like us as the umpteenth generation of the story, saying like, and that's the other line that I was really hoping we'd talk about in this. Is the for every moment of our lives is the beginning, and he keeps going back to the in the beginning theme.
The last song is all in that theme.
Yeah, but that we that we can choose to drop the knife right now. This step is once again our first. And that at any time we've been on this path and there's been pain and we've been raised with who knows what kinds of things handed on to us. And today we get to choose. Right. And tomorrow is today, and we get to choose. There's always the choice to let go and to trust and to choose love over fear and control. And it's just like, come on, come on.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great that whole last story arc in the after the act, you see so many of those choices. Yeah. Right? Like you certainly we've talked through like Noah's choice in the end not to throw Yonah overboard. But Yonah has a number of those choices as well. The choice to, I guess I will step in bravery onto the boat, which I know I'm not welcome to do, or continuing to pray to Father even though she knows that Father is angry and wants her gone.
Already shut her out.
Yeah, already shut her out.
You're dead to me before you were born.
Yep. The choice to both to pray to Father, but also to send the dove out into the world. Even Japheth's choices too. The choices that Japheth makes are ones that are beginning. They don't repeat the pattern. They don't repeat what happened before. So yeah, it's interesting that last act especially holds so many of those beginnings that we then can say, yeah, every moment is a beginning. Every moment is a choice around that. Yeah. And then another thing, you talk about the staging a little bit, and there's really fun stuff to talk about there, but I don't know if we have time for that, but one of them that I would want to talk about is, I think it's I remember it being in the script. You can tell me if you saw it there, but about Father is on stage pretty much for Act 2. Yeah. In some place. You got to put him somewhere. Yeah. And for the most of the play, like once Yonah's on the ark, he's not looking anymore.
Like he turns his back on what's happening on the play. The lights are down on him. He's done, right? Like he's gone back to oblivion or stopped caring about creation or I'm done. And I think it's when, what is the moment? Maybe you remember, but there's a moment and it's Yona does something that he turns around to watch.
It's when the dove flies out
Is
of
it
the boat.
when she sends the dove?
The two of them are the two that watch the dove fly across the stage.
Well, and she has a great little prayer monologue there and does that. And that's when God starts paying attention again.
Yeah.
And there's just this like some beautiful, meaningful thing, sacrificial, emotionally, right? Like a vulnerable moment has happened that has invited the person who has shut everybody out to listen again. And that's kind of the bummer that in most family situations, I don't think that usually happens.
Yeah.
But just that beautifulness of like, this kind of love is what can open closed hearts and doors and make us, there's racism in this, right? Like this whole race is bad. And here in this one moment that belief got cracked and that opened all the rest of the dialogue to be able to happen and all the rest of human history, according to this play. But yeah, I love that. That's a really cool, interesting thing to have an actor on stage.
Yes.
For a whole act doing nothing.
Yeah.
Not paying attention.
Not paying attention. Intentionally. Yeah. Intentionally not paying attention. Well, interestingly, and we're coming down to the end of our time, but as that is the segue, the other characters in this play that we haven't had much of a nod to yet are the storytellers.
Yeah.
And God kind of like Father kind of weaves his way into and out of the storytellers, definitely separate from them, but the storytellers kind of become the power of Father. Sometimes they become animals, sometimes they become different, named characters at various stages of age, because there's all generations of actors in this cast, specifically called for to have a multi-generationality within this cast. So yeah, just real quick. I loved so the dove is a big image that can only be pulled off with the ensemble. The snake is a big image.
That's okay. I said this before we started recording. That's the song that like, can we do a rework of that song? And I don't know why it annoys me. It's very like we're gonna hiss a lot and like
there are a lot of hisses.
But also the thing that makes me I see what you're doing here. I think is that the whole Eden section is very preschool.
Yeah.
And all the songs feel very like something you'd see in a I'm really old and I was going to say Barney. I don't know. What's the show now that's like that is the songs? I don't know. Maybe there isn't one anymore. Good, we don't do
Bluey,
that.
I don't think
Bluey doesn't do that kind of song thing anymore. Wiggles, no. Something. But it's that kind of like playful, you can hear kind of the xylophone playing under it, and it's cute. And I want me some dark snake, but it's not. The snake is just there going like, hey, you want to be even cooler than you are? And that's really it. And she does. Mm-hmm. There's also some cool stuff about like when you go near the tree, the light goes dark.
Yeah.
Whatever that means.
Well, and light, there's a lot of light in the start of it. Like light is a big motif. Flashlights start the play, or like little pings of light start from the storytellers, kind of weaving their way into the magic of things starting with light. But as you grow closer to the tree of knowledge. Also, there's just so many things. We're running out of time, but there's so many things. Like the way that the tree of knowledge becomes the crutch on which Adam like leans and Eve leans, and like over and over, just the imagery of that staff of Adam made from the tree of knowledge, on which they are leaning as they try to figure out the consequences of that knowledge, or the power of that knowledge as well.
Yeah. Well, and the whole longing for the knowledge, Eve's got great big songs because I think it was God, Father, says beyond, and she gets super excited about that word. And then she's like real excited as she eats the fruit about like, I understand industry and I can like build things and like, this is going to be so cool. And God's like, no, because I had plans for you, and then there's this great back and forth. They're like, why did you put questions in me? Why did you disobey me? That's not an answer. And it's just like, nobody's listening to each other. No one's understanding what the other one's longings are. And what are her longings? His longings for like creation and new things and discovery. And that's what he created this world out of. And every person is longing for that thing that everyone else has longed for, and but not, no, you can't do it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm repeating the same stuff.
It's all such good stuff.
I think it's because it's so human. It's so this is what we all live in some form or another, and it's this story of like how do we come out of who our parents wanted us to be, and accept who we are, and then as we have children,
right,
offer them that gift too, and the world around us.
Yeah, it's a play that speaks to both sides of the coin. Certainly, someone in the children category, or someone like who has that role with their parent, will certainly get something out of this play. But also the parent will also, like, there's so much in this play written for the parent as well. It's a great play. There's so many different facets to it. We didn't touch on nearly half of them.
No.
But last we were
also there are women in this play. I feel like we didn't do that.
No, we did a little bit, but we did focus a lot on
Yona's part is great, but she only gets to show up in Act 2. She gets one line in Act 1 because she gets to say Eden. Cool. And then Mama Noah.
Yep.
Mama Noah and who is Eve gets some of the real like gospel-y, intense
big numbers,
bangers in the show.
Yep, for sure.
But a lot of that, all of those choices are put between a father and a son.
Yeah.
So there is definitely that
structure to the play.
Yeah, that kind of what's the word I want? Trope of the father-son dynamic, which plays out in all gender, but is used in this play and in the Bible. So fair, but yeah.
That said, the closest I got to crying was Eve's song with Father. Like,
at the end?
No, end of Act 1, where Eve is the one left of that original drama. And
like this brief day, my life is nearly done.
Yeah. So many good things that we would love to keep talking about. Alas, we are at the end of the time for this particular podcast, but that doesn't mean this conversation has to end here. We'd love to continue talking about this play, Children of Eden, with all of you out there in podcast land. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter at the username at NoScriptPodcast. We also have a Gmail, noscriptpodcast@gmail.com, if you want to use that for some reason. But we'd love to find you on any of those sites. You can find us there, and we'd love to be a spot that people get to chat about plays too. So certainly reach out and chat with us there. I'll forward or tag Phil into anything over there. And you can find us over there, and we post every week the podcast on Facebook, on Instagram, on the Podbean, on Podbean, where we host the podcast, but also anywhere that you get your podcast. If you know people who like talking about scripts, who like talking about plays, who like being in plays and want people to talk about that with, we'd love to be those people for you and your friends. So definitely pass the podcast along to all those places. And if you're looking for the easiest route for someone to click a link and play it, Facebook is the way to do it. If you have any folks who just want a page to click on a link and listen to the thing, we post on Facebook every week. You can find it there.
Unless you've cut off everybody in your family who's on Facebook, like Father.
Yeah, like Father.
But may this be your invitation to no, don't do that. Just make your own healthy choices. Right. Yeah.
Phil, thank you so much for jumping on the show. Anywhere people can find you at all?
I'm on this other podcast. This other podcast called Liturgical Shenanigans with a few really good people and Jackson.
It's true.
So you could you can come listen to us there. Come check that out.
Yeah, you can find it over there.
Wayfolk Arts is what you'll be looking for on Instagram and all the other socials if you want to see some more of that. I wonder, I don't know if I'm allowed to, but I just did. Yeah. Before we go, because it's a musical. Yeah. So if they were going to go, and I know it's hard to find them, but if they were going to go look and listen to like one or two songs, what would you direct them to get the flavor of the show, or to like the bangers they don't want to miss?
For sure. There are a couple tracks if you search. So if you search for Children of Eden on Spotify, there's a couple tracks on there, and people have done the work of putting a lot of them into playlists. But if you want to get a good listen through of the whole show, relatively the whole show, you'll miss a lot of the dialogue. Yeah. But a lot of the songs, there's YouTube playlists. Yeah. That's probably your best option.
But do you have any favorite songs or ones that you would say go listen to?
Oh man, I gotta look. But the Eve song is still one.
That
of the
one
ones.
At the end of Act 1.
At the end of Act 1,
I think it's just called Children of Eden. Is that one? And then there's I think Japheth's song, what is it called? In the Wasteland. Yep. Is that what it's called? The Wasteland. And then Lost in the Wilderness. Sorry, it's called Lost in the Wilderness. And then I love the romance song, in Whatever Time We Have, and Yona's Stranger to the Rain.
Yes, that's so good.
Really, really good for anybody who's like in that place of like, life is hard and we're just going to keep trying because that's what we're going to do. And I'm going to stand up and be me. And come on.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, I'll stop.
And then as far as like a journey, like a song on a journey goes, oh no, I just had it right. The Hardest Part of Love.
Oh, that's kind of
is the one
the
that
big one.
like, yeah, the one where Noah changes father's mind.
Yep.
So,
and I had another thought, but we can. The Generation song at the start of Act 2.
Yeah.
If you want to seem really smart in any of your Bible groups and have like essentially Genesis 5, the generations of Adam memorized, generations of Seth.
Sure.
And actually from 4, the generations of Cain are in there too.
Yeah.
You can really impress people by knowing the genealogies there just by listening to this banger. So
there you go.
Go do it.
Start Act 2 and go for it.
There's your Sunday school hack for this week.
Fantastic. Well, next week, Jacob will be back and we'll be coming at you with, actually, I think it's the last show of the season, so don't worry. We'll be coming back with you another season after that soon, but get set for that show. Until then, Phil, thank you again for jumping on the show.
Thank you.
And until next week, when we are talking about another great script, I'm Jackson. Thanks for listening to No Script, the podcast.